1.
Are you up now?
I am.
3. We'll go to S.
Okay, give me 1 sec.
Okay, thank you
SSI
so
to
much.
start to apply. Produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Thank you for your patience, Pastor
The
Hatch.
YMCA is just the starting line for the true.
Absolutely glad to be here.
Thank you. Glad to have you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to hit the last minute.
Why is the
Bits and
before work hustle
pieces.
an after school home, a section of my block, the corner to call my own? With my why, I stand strong, seen and supported all along. It's a million faces in a mirror and everyone.
All right, Pastor Hatch, could you talk to me, please?
Join today at ymca.org for a better.
Yes,
WCPT.
glad to be here this morning. Thank you so much. Looking forward.
See that cute little
How's that?
store window? Chances are.
Okay, I can hear you on the Facebook.
Okay,
breeding
that's good.
facility that
And that's
forces
what we need.
caged,
Thank you,
neglected,
Pastor
and
Hatch. That's why
often
we have
sick
to get you up
dogs that churn
early.
out puppy
We
after
can never
puppy
take
to
that
be
for
sold
granted.
All right.
Meanwhile, millions of wonderful, healthy
How's your
pets end
family?
up in animal shelters. This leads to the
Oh, everybody is well
by the
and
Please give
grown and growing.
one
Oh my
simple
gosh,
choice
give my
you
love
can
to your
help
wife.
just by deciding to adopt instead of
Absolutely. She just left out.
Shelters are full of
Please
amazing
give her
pets
my
looking
love.
for a home. When you adopt your new best
Sure thing.
not only are you saving a life, you're taking a stand against puppy mills. When your friends see the smart choice
much
and
time do
impact
we
you've
have?
made, they adopt their
You have 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Okay, great. Can
5
you add
more.
another minute,
Before
please?
long,
For sure.
Thank
get
you.
involved. Pet stores stop selling dogs from puppy mills, and even more lives are saved. And with your help, we can save them all. Visit bestfriends.org/puppy mills to learn more.
We don't want you on our team. You're too slow and fat.
This is weight bias.
I'm worried about your weight.
Don't you care what other people think?
Millions who live and are affected by obesity face weight bias every day.
You're not the right fit for this job.
Unfair judgment by others.
Just stop eating so much and exercise some. You lose all this weight.
These people often blame themselves.
It's just me. Nobody likes me. I do exercise and eat right. And I talk to my doctor.
Weight bias hurts.
Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect.
Your words and actions matter.
Let's stop weight bias.
Let's work together.
Be part of the solution. Go to stopweightbias.com and learn more. A public service message from Obesity Action Coalition.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Listen, Tess, where are they now?
Let's welcome Jerry Beck.
A famous story with Mel Blanc. Around the time he started the Flintstones, he got into this horrific car accident, and he was out in a coma for like a month or two. And finally, the doctors started talking to him in a coma. They started addressing him as Bugs Bunny, and he came out of the coma basically going, "What's up, Doc?" You know.
Tune into Where Are They Now? Saturdays at 10 a.m.
Well, that's
Hey,
you,
listen.
Devin.
The Takedown.
Yeah, I do a few things here. 60 seconds, everyone.
I'm always trying to hear.
Successes, the ones you must know that the media will not tell you about. Number 2, jobs.
The economy's created 12 million jobs since I took office. That means we have created more jobs in 2 years than any presidential term, than any time in 2 years. That's the strongest 2 years of job growth in history by a long shot. We also learned that the unemployment rate fell to 3.4%. 3.4%. That's the lowest in 54 years. In fact, the last time unemployment rate was that low was May of 1969.
Oh, we've heard Republicans lie and exaggerate about inflation, which is coming down, and many other economic challenges we've gone through. Well, guess what?
Okay,
Joe
let's
Biden
get
broke
to it,
the
everybody.
record.
10 seconds, everybody.
2 years of our presidency. That's right, broke the
Thank you, Pastor Hatch,
Hear
again.
more from Cliff
Cool.
at heartlandsignal.com. And
Absolutely.
I'm having the worst allergy day ever.
Can change the world, change the world, change the
Me too.
world. We can
can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest talk radio station. Get a little bit of feedback. We're going to work that out for you. Hey, we're going to be talking about seniors today. You know, we are in really a climate crisis. You can see much of America, at least half of us have been living under heat alerts for much of the summer. And no one's impacted more profoundly than the most vulnerable. And perhaps the most vulnerable amongst us are our seniors. And so Congressman Jonathan Jackson is going to be having a health care fair for seniors. It's going to be at the Kroc Center at 119th and Elizabeth on Friday from 10 to 2. You will get free health screenings and you'll find out what's available to you. Many of us do not know, Pastor Marshall Hatch, so many of the government services, so many organizations that help us without cost to us. So we're going to have Congressman Jackson and Dr. Damon Arnold, who was the former head of the Illinois Department of Public Health, to talk to us about what's available to us and how we can care for our seniors, how we can care for ourselves in this heat, in these extreme climes. It was very hot in Chicago a few days ago. Now it's relatively cool. I mean, how does that impact your health? We'll be talking about that. But first, let's talk about the Supreme Court. Justice Alito, who has been, like so many of these on the Supreme Court, and the most business-friendly Supreme Court since the Second World War, since they really started tracking these things. He's been hanging out with billionaires whose cases he would be deciding upon, favorably, by the way. And so he said Congress has no right to regulate the Supreme Court. Well, then who does? So let's talk about that at the bottom of the hour. And I want you to call me at 773-763-9278 here, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Met some people from the KAM Temple. Indeed, Rainbow Push, our headquarters at 930 East 50th Street, is a converted synagogue. And that particular congregation is 175 years old. And they're going to be celebrating their High Holy Day. We will be celebrating it with them in September. They're going to be coming to their original home, the headquarters at Rainbow Push, and they're going to be celebrating with us. I'm going to have the honor of singing with their cantor. I'm so excited about that, Pastor Marshall Hatch. We were able to meet with them along with your dear friend, your brother beloved, Dwight McKee and Steve Saunders and Dr. Bob Starks yesterday. And so we're going to be talking about that as we move forward. But, you know, everybody, let's talk about how we care about our seniors. And let's talk about this Supreme Court today. Call me at 773-763. WCPT 773-763-9278. An aide to Donald Trump, as we begin these headlines, is expected to plead not guilty in court today. Carlos D. Oliveira, the 56-year-old, has worked at the former president's Florida home for more than a decade. He's the second employee to be charged alongside the former president over the alleged hoarding and hiding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Atlanta is also now bracing for possible indictments in an investigation into attempts to overturn the 2020 election by the former president and his team. So what do you think about that, everybody? They are putting up the barricades around the courthouse. What do you think is going to happen? At least 40 people were killed in a bombing in Pakistan yesterday. God bless their souls. A suspected suicide bomber targeted a right-wing political and religious party. Nearly 200 people were injured at the convention in the cities in the country's Northwest region. An Arkansas law against providing harmful books to children was blocked. It makes it a crime for librarians and booksellers to give minors materials deemed harmful, close quote, open quote, close quote, to them. It was set to take effect tomorrow. The federal judge temporarily blocked this law, however, on Saturday. He sided with bookstores and libraries that argued in a lawsuit that parts of the law were unconstitutional. Recent rent prices are finally cooling down. Recent increases have returned to pre-pandemic norms, growing 1% and 3% per year. But the fact is, most Americans who make a wage living are not able to afford an apartment, not able to afford to rent an apartment in the cities in which they work. The U.S. will play Portugal at the Women's World Cup overnight. The U.S. faces a tricky path to the next stage of the tournament. You know, they're trying to get a three-peat, everybody. After a win over Vietnam and a draw with the Netherlands, a win or draw could take the U.S. to the knockout round. A loss would most likely mean the team's earliest World Cup exit. Everybody, prayers up for our ladies. For our ladies, this is Megan Rapinoe's last World Cup as a player. So everybody, scientists have discovered. Oh, I know you're going to love this, Pastor Marshall Hatch. They've discovered how to induce virgin birth in fruit flies. Fruit flies that normally must mate to reproduce can be genetically modified to give birth asexually for generations to come. A new study found. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that if God figured it out, I think you need to leave it alone. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 78 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 86 degrees, mostly sunny. In Major League Baseball, the Royals 2, the Twins 1, the Cardinals 3. They shut out the Cubs with nothing. The Guardians 5 shut out the White Sox with nothing. Come on, Chicago. Right now, live, Ireland is playing Nigeria in the Women's World Cup. At halftime, Canada is leading Australia 2-0, and Japan will be playing later on today. And of course, the U.S. will be playing Portugal overnight, everybody. In the WNBA, Brittany Griner is taking a much-needed mental health break for a couple of games. God bless her. The Sky 104, the Mercury 85, the Lynx 87, and the Sun 83. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We have got Pastor Marshall Hatch with us today. That's right. We got your dean from the Mafa Redemption Project. Tomorrow. But it's always a joy to be with you, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, theologian, pastor. Indeed, you all have to go to this church because it is such a beautiful cathedral. Indeed, the largest renderings in stained glass of the civil rights martyrs in the world are in that church. I would urge you to go to this magnificent cathedral. How are you this morning?
Super blessed today, and always good to be on the Santita Jackson Show. One of the most informative and inspiring radio shows in the entire English-speaking world. I tell you, I get so much from it.
Oh, well, we get so much from you. And so there you go. And people get so much from this MAFA Redemption Project. And you had the wisdom to bring on Dwight McKee, who's just absolutely brilliant, along with you and your family. Dr. D.
Absolutely.
But you know, you got your whole family's that way. So, you know, much credit to you. And of course, to the First Lady Hatch. I got to give her the credit.
Absolutely been blessed. Yes. This coming Sunday will be our 40th wedding anniversary. It's a milestone for us.
Congratulations. God bless you. God bless you. Oh, what a woman. And you're not so bad yourself.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I'm doing the best I can.
No, you're a great husband and father and pastor. And of course, a leader in our community. We're so glad that you're with us today. What's the good news?
Well, Dr. Cornel West has often said, let the phones be smart and let the humans be wise. You know, it's a variation of the biblical theme of Proverbs. Wisdom is the principal thing. I mean, pursue wisdom as a real purpose of life. And wisdom, of course, you were just talking about, some of the dangers of the way that we are using science, everything you can do. It does not mean everything you should do. And so what wisdom means is seeing the end at the beginning so that one can change course as necessary. Wisdom is the path of life and reflecting on where something ends up before one begins the journey so that one can determine whether or not that is the journey that we will, that is the journey we desire. So wisdom is the principal thing. Get wisdom. Let the phones be smart and let the people be wise. And so there's an interesting reflection. Proverbs 2:2 says again, incline your ear to wisdom and your heart to understanding. So it's very interesting that the ear and the heart are the real prerequisites of growing in wisdom. The ear, not so much the mouth, not the talking, but the listening and the desiring. In other words, wisdom has to be wanted. Nobody is wise accidentally. It is an intentional pursuit. You have to desire it. So, and then, and listen for it. Listen for instruction. So what really makes a person wise? Well, one, they're teachable. You have to be open to being taught, to listening. And that's why it's the inclining of the ear. And then you have to also be correctable, meaning to recognize your shortcomings and be prepared to make adjustments. That I'm not all of that. That I have to I have improvement. I'm open to improving day by day. And then thirdly, and one of my favorite, I don't know if it's a word or not, but I use it. It's called chastisable, meaning that one has to be able to. When we say chastise, we normally mean some form of pain, actually, for the purposes of correction, not for punishment. But it means that discipline, which has to do with the first adversity, to absorb adversity for the purposes of correction of behavior, discipline. And these are all the tools of wisdom, of gaining wisdom. And so I really challenge us, day by day, especially when we have to handle the adversities of life, the vicissitudes of life. I had a friend that didn't know the word vicissitudes. They would say the beatitudes of life, the stuff of life, the things that can happen in life are the tools for learning. And so we turn our losses into lessons, our pains into power, our stumbling blocks in the stepping stone. And ultimately, we turn those things that are designed to correct us into things we value. And so wisdom today is the...
Okay, you just went out, Pastor.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Let the phones be smart, and let the humans be wise. They pursue wisdom by listening and desiring it, and wisdom will come to you. Amen.
Amen. Before you go, I want to ask you about this because I was a little surprised by this story when I heard it. And then, of course, that's why I presented it to us. Scientists have discovered how to induce a virgin birth in fruit flies. We keep moving around with nature. That's not quite the virgin birth, but it's, let's say the unmated birth. What do you think about that? I mean, because I just think that God's plan is perfect. And, and I'm sensitive to the fact that there are a lot of people in our audience who are atheists, who are agnostic. But I think that, let's just say, the natural way is the best way. And I see us tinkering, and not tinkering to get better, but to get smarter, slicker, not wiser.
Yeah.
What about this? What about just tinkering with these fruit flies so that they can reproduce asexually? What is that?
To what end, right?
Yeah.
You always have to wed science with ethics. Otherwise, it becomes destructive. It's sort of like the Oppenheimer movie on the atomic bomb. The man who creates it almost regrets it because he made a better bomb. You can't have a good outcome with science without having it being controlled by ethics. And so when it comes to wisdom, everything I could do does not mean it's something I should do. You know what's going to be the greatest challenge for humanity from the people who created it, warning us? Artificial intelligence. Almost a recreation of a human prototype. For what end? For what purpose? And so when I hear stories like the fruit fly, when I hear about artificial intelligence, I remember the wisdom of the ancients, the wisdom of our ancestors, the wisdom of our elders, who in their eschatological reflection, meaning the way of reflecting on the end, always says humankind must be careful, because if we're not, we destroy ourselves. So when we divorce science from ethics, it potentially and almost always is going to lead to self-destruction. And if we're not careful, that destruction is going to end up being a total and complete destruction.
Of all of us.
Of all of us.
How can we worship with you?
Baked into the human condition is ultimate self. Humankind will destroy itself if we're not careful.
How can we worship with you? Because we need to get some of this.
I'm at the new Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, and you got to have missionary in there, like Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. That means the black ones, okay? But New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, 4301 West Washington Boulevard, Chicago, 60624.
Sending you so much love. Whenever I'm with Pastor Hatch. Oh, absolutely. Whenever I'm with you, I feel the wisdom of the ancients.
Well, let the stones be smart and let the humans be wise.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. And everybody, please support the MAFA project. They're doing such great work with our young people here in Chicago. MAAFAA, Redemption Project. Please give them your support. Everybody, well, before we go to break, let me go to Michael. Michael has called in. Michael, what's on your mind, sweetie?
Yes, I'd like to talk about 17-year-old young people voting in the primary elections in Illinois and 23 other states and Washington, D.C. Now, this is not well known in the public. It's never on the newspapers or on the television. A lot of people in the United States believe that you have to be 18 years of age to vote in any election in this country. You got to be 18. But that's not true. Our society is lowering the voting age to 17 for the primary elections, but it's only in 24 states. But that's a very good start. But a lot of people don't know about that, so they don't refer their children or grandchildren to vote. Now, the ruling is in these 24 states, for the 17-year-old to vote, they have to become 18 years old on or before the November 2024 general election. They got to be 18 years of age before the general election. But if they fulfill that requirement, they could vote in the general election because they're 18 before the general election, and also they could vote in the corresponding primary election. Now, I just want to mention a few states that are battleground states that have this out of 24 states. We have this in Illinois. We got 17-year-old kids voting. We have it in Maine, in Vermont, in Maryland, in Virginia, in North Carolina, in South Carolina, Ohio, Indiana, Colorado, New Mexico, and Nevada. So we have a lot of good states where the vote is very important. Now, this is a great way for young adults to be involved in the political process. They could start early, you see. And I like to say this, it's very hard to get a progressive law through the state legislatures with the gerrymandering and limiting the vote. You know, it's very hard to get a good law through.
Michael,
a good law
Michael, could you stay with me for a hot second? Because I'd like you to say that again on the other side of the break.
Okay.
What you're giving us is great
Yes.
information. Stay right here. Michael is giving us great information. If your child will be 18 on or before the election, they could vote in the primaries. Hey, that's in Illinois. That's in Vermont. That is in Maine. It's in Maryland. It's in Virginia. It's North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, Indiana, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada. Did you know that? Let's talk about that, and let's talk about the Supreme Court. Who's going to regulate them? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a moment. Michael, thank you so much for that.
Try it now.
Oh, Michael?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much for that. I wanted you to come on because although we're going to be pivoting to the discussion on the Supreme Court, one of the foremost, probably there's no one who's a greater advocate for the vote than the Transformative Justice Coalition, and the chair of their board. The president and founder is Barbara Arnwine, attorney Barbara Arnwine, who's a former executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, which of course was created by President Kennedy. Now, she's created an organization, the Transformative Justice Coalition, and the chair of her board, Attorney Daryl Jones, will be on. And I'd love for you to share this once again and for you all to interact, okay?
Okay.
I really appreciate that information.
Yeah, I studied the 17-year. I believe we should encourage more people to vote, to give the information out so people can take advantage of this important law.
Absolutely. So what do you do?
I'm retired now. I'm 78 years old. I'm retired. And I used to work for the state of Illinois in the Department of Human Services.
So you're still doing human services? So you haven't retired?
Well, yeah, not really. Yeah.
You haven't retired. You just don't draw that big paycheck anymore. You haven't retired. You're still doing human services. Thank you for that.
I'm doing volunteer work.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, some issues are well publicized, like the abortion issue and the legalizing marijuana, and people know they can take a stand on it. But some issues are already passed by the legislature. They pass in 24 states, but it's not publicized. It's never on the TV. They're kind of keeping it like a secret. And even the Chicago Board of Election Commissions, you know, the agency that's required to handle our elections, Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Yes. I look at their website. You can never tell a 17-year-old has any rights to vote in primary elections on their website because they don't talk about it very much. They don't.
Do you work with any voting rights groups?
I'm kind of independent. I'm on the north side. I work with the 40th Ward. I help progressive people get elected, progressive to aldermen and ward assemblywomen. I give them cash benefits. I give a contribution. That's $50 here, $70 there. And for good candidates, good progressive candidates. Sure. On the north side, in the 44th, 49th Ward, 47th Ward, we got some liberal progressive aldermen, pretty liberal on a lot of issues.
Well, you know,
sending Reverend Uri and Attorney Jones through.
Because I wasn't asking you about about being partisan, because to me this is a transpartisan issue. But sir, would you mind sharing your last name? But if not, I certainly understand that.
I don't think I'll let you share.
You don't have to, but I wanted to introduce you to Reverend Dr. Todd Uri. He's part of the national leadership team at Rainbow Push, and he's the senior pastor of one of the iconic churches in the United States, the Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore. And then I've got the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Daryl Jones. Attorney Daryl Jones, this is one of our listeners, a brilliant caller.
60 seconds.
And he has been, I want you to comment on the information that he's passing out, which is that 17-year-olds who are going to be 18 on or before the general election or the primary, or on or before the general election can vote. It's something that is an active reality, a law in 24 states, but most people don't know about it.
Okay, you can use my last name. My last name is Lipschutz. You want me to spell it?
Lipschutz?
Lipschutz.
Lipschutz?
No, Lipschutz.
Oh, Lipschutz.
And right, Michael Lipschutz. I have a Facebook page. I got a Facebook page, and
well, I'm about to bring you on. I'm about to bring you on.
Okay.
I'll stay right there.
All right, I'll stay here.
10 seconds.
Daryl?
Good morning, Santita.
Good morning. And just make sure you all get off mute. Okay, thank you. Here we go.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Justice Alito does not want the U.S. Congress to regulate the Supreme Court. He said, how dare you? Even after we find out that he's been hanging out with billionaires whose cases he's been deciding favorably in the Supreme Court. Before we do that, I had Mr. Michael Lipschutz, someone who's in retirement, but now he's still devoting his life to improving all of our lives, to human services, which is what he did in his professional career. But he called in with something that I think Reverend Dr. Uri and Attorney Daryl Jones, and Attorney Jones, I'd love for you to weigh in on this, that many of us do not know, but we need to know. Mr. Lipschutz, what were you saying at the top, on the other side of the break?
I was saying that 17-year-olds can actually vote when they're 17-year-olds, but they must become 18 years old by the November 2024 general election. If they're 18 years old before the 2024 general election, they could, of course, vote in the general election then as 18-year-olds, and they could vote in the corresponding primary election in their state. Now, this is in 24 states now. But a lot of people in this country believe that you've got to be 18 years old to vote in any kind of election whatsoever. Anything, you got to be 18. They've heard of 18. But it's not true, because 24 states, they are lowering the voting age. They've already lowered the voting age, but a lot of people don't know about it. And these would be high school seniors. And we have this in Illinois. I believe it passed in 2014, 17-year-old voting. But a lot of high school seniors don't know about this. So I want to tell their parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts to tell their children and their grandchildren and their nieces and nephews, if they're 17 and they're going to be 18 by the general election, they could also vote in the primary election. And if I could say this briefly, should I run through the 24 states quite quickly?
Please.
That have it legal? I mentioned,
Yes, please go for it very quickly.
Okay. Here are the 24 states that already have the laws passed. It's on the books, 17-year-old voting. Okay. In alphabetical order: Alaska, Connecticut, Colorado, Delaware, Washington, D.C., it's a city there, of course, Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Mississippi, Nebraska, North Dakota, New Mexico, North Carolina, Ohio, South Carolina, Utah, Vermont, West Virginia, Washington State, and Wyoming. Now, I want to be clear about this. In these 24 states, 20 of them, both Democratic and Republican and third-party primaries, they can vote, 17-year-olds. But in four states, only the Democrats allow you to vote. The Republicans don't allow you to vote in their primary. But those four states where the Democrats can vote in the primary are North Dakota, Wyoming, Alaska, and Hawaii. See, we have a patchwork of laws on voting. They're different, you know. So four states, the Democrats will allow you to vote in a 17-year-old primary, but not the Republicans. But in 20 states, it's all the parties. So it's a good start. It's a very good start. for voting.
Okay.
And I want to say this, like I said before, it's very hard to pass progressive laws in this country with the gerrymandering and the suppression of the vote. So when a state passes a liberal law that's progressive, we should take advantage of it and publicize it, because there's a lot of 17-year-olds out there. There's hundreds of thousands of them that could be eligible to vote in these important primaries coming up. These primaries are very crucial this year. Sure. And we should encourage them to vote, you see.
Well,
and it's a good way for young people
to be involved in the, absolutely. I mean, Mr. Lipschutz, wow. I mean, Daryl Jones, most people don't know this. And it's something I don't think we emphasize enough. Oh, hold on one moment, Mr. Lipschutz. Attorney Jones?
I will.
Yeah, no. Good morning, Santita and Mr. Lipschutz. You're absolutely on point with that. There are other states where 17-year-olds can vote, and very interestingly, because of the inconsistency, and that's what Mr. Lipschutz was just lifting up, that there are only certain states that permit the 17-year-olds to vote. One of the things that we know is that when you start a young person voting early on in their life, that they're more inclined to continue to vote, to feel that obligation, to feel the rush of power that comes with voting. And that's why we encourage people to take young kids with them when they go to vote, is so that they can see their parents doing it and they begin to mimic the behavior. But he's absolutely correct with regards to, the power of that 17-year-old that's turning 18, or the 17-year-old, depending upon the state, to be able to vote. One of the things that can be addressed so that to clear up any ambiguity or people not knowing is including this type of requirement of 17-year-olds voting in the Freedom to Vote Act federally, so that all states are doing the same thing. You don't have to go through a reading of the 24 states or 19 states that have laws that are on the books. But that's one of the reasons why we push to have this type of provision put on the federal ballot, on the Federal Freedom to Vote Act, so that everybody would know about it. But he's absolutely on point. We got to push everyone to vote, and certainly knowing that our young voters to have the ability to vote, we need the parents to know that the 17-year-olds can do it in those states.
Well, an amendment of the Constitution, which is a constitutional amendment, I know that my brother, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., wrote when he was in Congress. States voting is still a state's right. It's not a federally protected right. I mean, Justice Scalia was right in 2000 in the Bush v. Gore decision. He said, no, there's no explicit right for you to vote in the Constitution. He was correct, sadly, because it was not the original idea of the founding fathers, notably, for all of us to vote. So this goes to that. And as you, Mr. Lipschutz, say, we are inching along toward total enfranchisement. But part of what you need to know, part of what needs to happen is people need to have the information. And we don't have that. And we're so grateful to you today for calling in and saying, hey, we've got to not only look at 18-year-olds, but those who are 17 who will be 18. They can vote as well. Why don't you, your final word before you go, Mr. Lipschutz?
Well, thanks for having me. And I believe sending the vote to younger people is a good idea. Some countries in the world, 4 countries allow 16-year-old kids to vote. And they changed the election. They changed the political structure in those countries. Brazil, Argentina, Scotland, and Austria allow 16-year-old kids to vote. And they're voting progressive, because young people are progressive, but people have a right to vote any way they want to. But most of them are very progressive, and they'll vote for good laws. You see, for women's rights, for the environment, and so forth. They'll be good voters if they start young. So thanks for having me a great deal. Thank you.
Oh, you've been a blessing. What a gift you are. Thank you so much, Mr. Lipschutz. And he says,
okay, bye-bye.
And he says he's retired. Please, he's not retired. He's now just able to do the things that he really, really, really is passionate about. And we thank you so much for calling in today. Reverend Dr. Uri, you want to make a comment before we pivot to the Supreme Court?
Well, Mr. Lipschutz hasn't retired. He's pivoted. To quote,
I've heard that
very, yeah, I think we've all heard that before. So I think he's helping us. The point of, what came to mind as he was talking was the Southern Crusade. In 1983, when traveling across the country, visiting high schools in the South, Reverend Jackson, that's when I met him, came to the high school I attended, Durham High. We had a joint assembly that day, and it was a big push to raise the awareness of high school juniors and seniors to start thinking about civic engagement. And a lot of my classmates were, like me, excited, registering to vote, got their voter registration card, and could not wait for the first opportunity to be able to vote in the election. Where it really matters is that it then gets us to having a more complete conversation about how to vote. This is to Daryl's point. That many times we get so focused on the focus of the election being at the federal level that we miss the important elections down ballot. And so with young people, because they're so excited, they're more attentive to how do I learn the process to have the greatest impact. And that's where I think we can begin to push back on some of these regressive state laws that are being passed under the radar while everybody's being enamored by the drama going on in D.C.
Everybody pass the word. Pass the word. Mr. Lipschutz, Michael Lipschutz, one of our listeners, one of our morning stars, called in to say, hey, everybody, don't miss this opportunity. If the young people will be 18 on on the first Tuesday in November, election day of 2024, they're able to vote in the primary season. They're able to vote in those elections leading up to that election in that year when they're 17. So please let us continue to spread the word. And Mr. Lipschutz, again, we are forever in your debt for your service to our community and your continued and continuing service. Sending you so much love today. I think many of us are looking at the Supreme Court and wondering just how much integrity they have. Indeed, analysis has shown that this is the most business-friendly Supreme Court since they started taking measure of their decisions, which is really since the Second World War. They have really the beginning of the last century, but since the Second World War, they have become decidedly not business-friendly. But while we look at the social decisions, what we're missing are the business decisions, which absolutely favor corporatism and corporatists. And so we've been talking about, of course, Clarence Thomas and his friendship with a billionaire whose cases have been before the court. But the same thing happened with Alito. We're seeing more and more and more and more and more. Just really. The rot on the Supreme Court, the fact that it's not pure. No, it's not. So Justice Alito, in an interview, said, look, let me tell you something. In the Wall Street Journal, it's a fascinating interview, and I would urge you to read it. I'm going to be tweeting it out shortly. He said that, wait a minute, first of all, Congress did not create the Supreme Court, so they have no right to regulate us, to oversee us. Who's going to oversee them then? Now, Cheryl Eiffel, who used to be the head of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, said, this is frightening and wrong. So I want to know what your thoughts are. Let me start with you, Attorney Jones. He said, you have no right to regulate me. Then who's going to oversee them? Congress oversees the president. Why not the Supreme Court?
Yeah, Santita, it's just shocking to hear one of our Supreme Court's justices say this, because we know that there's a checks and balances, right? Mm-hmm. And so Congress is supposed to serve as the check and balance on the court, and the court serves as the check and balance on the Congress and the executive branch. So it's very clear, and when obviously if you're looking at the Constitution and you're dealing with Article 3, Section 2, that talks about exactly that in fact that Congress does have the power and to be able to do precisely that, and that is to under certain regulations that the Congress will make determinations with regards to Supreme Court matters. So it's clearly within the Constitution that would permit Congress and Senate to be able to pass legislation that controls the Supreme Court. And my goodness, have they not demonstrated that they need it? I mean, what kicked this off, what kicked off the Alito matter, Justice Alito's matter, was the information that was revealed about him, accepting this, of course, another very high-paying vacation, right, out on a hunting trip or whatever it was, from someone that ends up appearing, has cases and stuff that appear in front of them. So we're right back in that bailiwick with regards to, the ethics of the court. Even if he's done nothing wrong, it looks wrong that you're accepting money from someone that's appearing in front of you and then saying you're impartial in making the decision, and you're not revealing the fact that you've accepted the funds. This is incredibly wrong. Justice Alito is wrong on his misinterpretation of the Constitution. Congress has the authority, has the obligation, really, to step in and to monitor what's happening with our Supreme Court.
Oh, so what say you, Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire? I mean, he said, you do not have the right to even look in my direction. And I said, well, then who's going to regulate you? I mean, I don't understand the hubris. I mean, it's stunning.
It's laughable that you have a sitting associate justice of the Supreme Court saying, we are so supreme that we're beyond the reach of the people's elected representative. It's the craziness that comes up. There's this ongoing argument in civics as to why the first article of the Constitution is the legislature. And it is because the legislature, being duly elected by the people who are qualified to vote, then get to decide who protects their interests. It's part of representative government. To now have this species of government that is beyond the reach of any control of government is like having artificial intelligence with nobody to reel it in. It is the greatest insanity that I have seen. And I would suggest then that part of the motivation to getting through the election is if you have a House that's not on the take too, in terms of the majority, impeachment is the way to then create a public record. If you start pulling, Samuel Chase was the only U.S. Supreme Court justice to have been impeached in our nation's history so far. But if it happened then, it can happen again. The question is, will the House of Representatives do its job to then say, okay, Justice Alito, since you think we have no control over you, here are these articles of impeachment. We're going to pass them over to the Senate. There's going to be a trial. And now, watch this, you now have the oversight of an impeachment process where you could have a peer of the Chief Justice being brought before this body to say, well, what happened? Now, you may not get the conviction. Samuel Chase wasn't convicted, but what you will get is a public record. And when we start looking at the public record, then it imposes a different standard when we start going through the confirmation process. This notion that Alito says there's nothing that can be done, you have to be hands off and we can do whatever we want to do. Not only is it's laughable, it's a lie. It's not even true. He can't point to anything in the Constitution nor in the common law, judge-made law, that says the court is beyond the reach of any accountability. We would be the laughingstock of the international stage to propose such a thing at this point when we're talking about the importance of democracy. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, so where are we with this? I mean, because we find that they're the most business-friendly court that we've had in 70 odd years. I mean, they have business, and we're always talking about the abortion decisions, these social decisions, and that's important. But the business decisions are always swept under the rug. Attorneys Jones and Urey. And I think we've got to pay attention to those too, Attorney Jones.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We've got to pay attention to all the business decisions and all the business influence that we see going on. And, and it's really the six conservative justices that tend to rank extremely high on the history of the court with regards to their pro-business positions that they've taken. And, one of the scarier parts of this is that, when you go through the whole, and we got to remember, the Supreme Court of the United States is the only branch of government where we have people that are not elected to those positions and serve for life. Think about this. You're unelected.
Say that
you
one more
serve for
time.
life.
Oh, say that one more time.
The Supreme Court of the United States is our only branch of government where we have people that are unelected and serve for life in the unelected position. And so, that is part of what has to raise the ire and raise the caution, the flags, the lights, whistles, everything should be going off with regards to being certain that you're monitoring this unelected, life-appointed group closely. And that's why Congress is so important with regards to the checks and balances on this particular group, because they're unelected and life-appointed. I mean, it becomes even more imperative that that type of behavior be monitored, that type of body be monitored. So, that's the big push here. Of course, Justice Thomas and Justice Gorsuch and Justice Alito don't want to be monitored. They don't want to be regulated. They don't want to have, the ethics put in place by their fellow people, their fellow branch of government on the legislative side of the aisle. But it's important now that the legislature step up and do its job and monitor, put in place the ethical standards for the Supreme Court. It's going to be interesting to watch it all unfold, because it's almost like the U.S. Supreme Court, in standing up against the legislative branch of government, is creating a standoff, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Sort of like the state legislature in the state of Alabama refusing to go forward with what the Supreme Court has told them to do with regards to their redistricting case. It's going to be a standoff. We're going to see what's going to happen. So, it's an interesting day.
Well, I think that we need to really be very specific, because it's really a standoff between big business and the people, because all they're proxies for corporations.
Right.
I mean, that's why when we talk about lobbyists, lobbyists are proxies for corporations. You need to deal with who is paying these folks. The lobbyists are not your problem. They're functionaries. These are the corporations. They're running the place. Senator Dick Durbin, Reverend Dr. Urey, said that when the economy was on the verge of collapse in 2008. The last 90 seconds belong to you, Pastor Urey.
Well, very quickly, remember the Supreme Court has ruled that corporations are persons. So really, they've created this new level of corporation. That's the whole argument about how politics has become tainted. And so I would suggest, as another thing, one, we push our elected representatives, our legislators, to hold the court accountable. There's another way that you can get their attention. What the court cannot do is fund itself. It has to be funded by the budget process of the Congress. If you hold up their money, I promise you will get their attention. If you freeze the Supreme Court's budget and make it part of the process, I promise you the Chief Justice will amazingly come up with some standards that will help them get back to doing the people's business.
You mean if we threaten their paycheck?
Their paycheck, their staffs, their security, the whole thing that comes out in their discretionary budget, tie it all up.
Tie it up. You need to, because guess what? This is your money. This is your Supreme Court. They work for us. We get it twisted. They don't work for themselves, and they don't work for these corporations. They work for us. They work for us. That was a great one. You guys are brilliant. Attorney Darrell Jones and Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire. Coming up, let's talk about how vulnerable our elders are, particularly at this time. Congressman Jonathan Jackson has a tremendous event on Friday. You're going to be able to get free health care screenings. He'll be up with us shortly, and you'll be able to find out what is available to you in government, what is available to you in these organizations. There's a lot of help that you can get. A lot of our seniors are on very restricted incomes, but guess what? Help is here. You just need to know where to find it. And we need to know what our vulnerabilities are, particularly as we're looking at a threatened grid and all of these high temperatures and the temperatures that swing. It was like in the 90s a few days ago. Now it's in the 70s right now. Oh my gosh. Boy, I love you, everybody. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a few minutes. Oh, you guys are brilliant. Thank you so much for that. When you want to hold up their paychecks, an audit is coming to you real soon.
I like it.
The Lord have mercy. But we forget who's really in charge here. We are.
Look, if my parents wanted conformity with my behavior, all they had to say is, "We're cutting off your allowance." Oh, this is you choose to play hardball, do you? Okay, so let me just get my little tail in line because everything, the transactions that are getting by.
Santita?
Because the transaction.
Attorney Hoffler's on hold right now. She had her times mixed up. Do you want to keep her on right now?
The big one, and get their attention.
Yes.
They'll figure it out.
Yes. Okay.
You know what? Do you want to weigh in on and Pastor Yuri, if you can, really, on where our elders can go for help? They're so vulnerable at this time. I'm going to have Congressman Jackson on at the bottom of the hour.
Sending Attorney Hoffler through.
Former head of the Illinois. Thank you so much, Devin. We're going to have the former head of the Illinois Department of Public Health on talking about that before we talk about this big healthcare fair that Congressman Jackson is going to have. It's a senior resource fair.
Okay, it's the next half or the bottom half.
Congressman's going to come on at 7:30, 8:30 your time. But right now we're just going to go into what seniors' needs are.
Yeah, I can hang around a few minutes.
I mean, I wish you would, because as a pastor, I wish you would do that.
Sure.
Because many of our
sending Dr. Arnold through.
Thank you. They have no money, and they don't know where to go, and that's part of what the congressman is talking about today. Dr. Arnold, how are you?
Doing fine. How are you?
One of my favorite human beings on earth. Indeed, he was the former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health, Attorney Jones, and Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, and Attorney C.K. Hoffler. So say hello to Dr. You all. If you've been at our conventions, you've met Dr. Arnold. Come on.
Yeah. Good morning.
Like, wait a minute. He is no stranger to us. He's part of the Rainbow Push family. But thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. It's
CK?
great family.
Good morning. I'm just trying to say hello to everybody. But I'm really glad. I was about to say my brother. Excuse me. Congressman Jackson is having this the senior resource fair, because so many of our seniors, their incomes are very restricted, and they're getting less money than they've gotten in the past. And they're really struggling now, particularly with the weather, with this extreme weather. And I remember in '95 when we had that big heat wave, we had a slew of deaths from people who were very active in Rainbow Push, Attorney Hoffler, and Reverend Dr. Geary, and Attorney Jones, and Dr. Arnold. Some of our longest serving members died not in the heat wave, but like the week or the second week after. It just, it got them. So I'm really glad that you all are with us today. So stand by.
So I'm probably going to drop Cynthia, but I'll be listening in. Dr. Arnold, great hearing from you. CK, always wonderful. And Todd, I'll see you around.
Sending you so much love, and you and Bailey. There you go.
Thanks so much. All right.
Saw him walking his little pooch around during the convention. I said, "Oh, isn't this sweet? This is so precious." I'm allergic to the dander. Dr. Arnold, my allergies are driving me crazy. Is there something going on here? I am in pain right now. My eyes are killing me. What can I do? What's a good thing? What can I take? I feel horrible.
Yeah. One of the things that's going on now is that, it has to do with a few things that are going on. But Right now, the mold count and pollen count has been almost like 100%, going into the season. And I mean, that's the highest level you can get to. But they, one of the things that people have been tying it to is actually global warming, because we have more moisture in the air than ever before. As things warm up, we have more, polar ice cap melting and all that. It actually affects the season. And since it's warmer, about a month and a half ago, the average temperature on the Earth is about 66 degrees, which is the highest it's ever been. But because that's happening, it's prolonging the season so that plants can grow for a longer period of time and pollinate. And, you have male trees and female trees, where pollen comes out and it actually disseminates and it goes through the air. So that is a fertile ground for these allergens to sort of multiply in and to give you higher numbers than before.
You got to lead me to something, because I want to take my eyes out right now and run them underwater.
Oh yeah,
I'm miserable right now. I'm miserable.
Yeah. And we can actually go into that offline in detail.
Please,
60 seconds,
I'm going to
everyone.
speak with you about it, because I am like miserable.
Yeah.
I almost couldn't put my eyelashes on. CK, that's a tragedy. Girl, I sat up under that fan. Girl, I was waiting for my eyes to dry so I could put my lashes on. So I kept. Yes, I did put the fan in my eyes. Yes, I did. So I said, okay, wait a minute. I put my lashes on today. Y'all, yes, I'm unashamed. How about that? Please, these fabulous fakes sitting up here. And I got them on too. And they are super glued on today. But if my eyes get moist, I will have to pull them off. So I don't walk around CK with them flapping.
10 seconds.
I always thought those were your real eyelashes.
Please.
I'm bad in mine.
Get out of here, honey. This man said that to me at dinner. I said, I know he's not.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Monday, July 31st, 2023. I am so glad to be with you today from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I met a woman yesterday who said, I thought you lived in Minneapolis. I said, no, my home is Chicago, but I love you, Minneapolis. AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And please meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody switch on over there. That's right, Kathy. You understand with my eyes. Oh, girl, I'm miserable right now. The pollen count is off the charts and I can feel it. My nose, just everything. But here we are today talking about the climate, talking about the environment, and really talking about our most vulnerable citizens. And among those are our seniors. Congressman Jonathan Jackson will be joining us shortly, is going to have his first annual Senior Resource Seminar, where you're going to have free health screenings. They're going to be talking to you about your Medicare and Medicaid, other insurance issues, nutrition and wellness with certified experts. And you're going to find out about the community services that are available to you. But we've got the former head of the Illinois Department of Public Health, indeed one of the world's foremost public health experts, a veteran, a brilliant scholar, Dr. Damon Arnold, who's going to be talking with us today. And if we have some challenges, what are the legal issues? What's the legal recourse that we have, Attorney C.K. Hoffler? And what is the church doing? Is there anything that the church can do, Reverend Dr. Todd Urey? Before I come to you on that, let me get to some of these headlines, everybody. An aide to Donald Trump is expected to plead not guilty in court today. Carlos de Oliveira, The 56-year-old has worked at the former president's Florida home for more than a decade. He's the second employee to be charged alongside the former president over the alleged hoarding and hiding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Atlanta is bracing for possible indictments in an investigation into attempts to overturn the 2020 election by former President Trump and his team. At least 40 people were killed in a bombing in Pakistan yesterday. May their souls rest in peace. A suspected suicide bomber targeted a right-wing political and religious party. Nearly 200 people were injured at the convention in the country's Northwest region. An Arkansas law against providing harmful books to children was blocked. What does the law do? It makes it a crime for librarians and booksellers to give minors materials deemed, quote, harmful, close quote, to them. It was set to take effect tomorrow, but a federal judge temporarily blocked the law on Saturday. We will be finding out what's going to happen there. Rent prices are finally cooling, according to the latest data. The U.S. will play Portugal at the Women's World Cup overnight. Will they get this three-peat? We're hoping that the United States is going to be able to push on through. The U.S. faces a tricky path, however, to the next stage of the tournament after a win over Vietnam and a draw with the Netherlands. What is needed is a win or a draw, which would take the U.S. to the knockout round. A loss would most likely mean the team's earliest World Cup exit. We're not going to even give voice to that, everybody. And scientists have discovered how to induce virgin birth in fruit flies. That is nuts. Yes, my editorializing. Fruit flies that normally must mate to reproduce can be genetically modified to give birth asexually for generations to come, a new study found. Renee Criswell, I agree with you. First the flies and then us. I'm not feeling that at all. In Chicago, a high of 78 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 86 degrees, mostly sunny. In Major League Baseball, the Royals 2, the Twins 1, the Cards 3, the Cubs 0, the Guardians 5, the White Sox nothing. Ireland is playing Nigeria right now in the FIFA World Cup. Go, ladies, go. And Canada has been meeting Australia. Japan will be meeting Spain today. And of course, late, overnight, the United States will be facing off against Portugal in the WNBA. Brittany Griner has taken a couple of mental health days off. We're certainly praying for her. In this, of course, our teams have been playing the Sky 104, the Mercury 85, the Lynx 87, and the Sun 83. Yes, it was a very, very good weekend for us in Chicago and Minneapolis sports, everybody. What about these half the summer? Most of the summer, half the country has lived under heat advisories. And it's been very, very difficult. Northwards of 100 degrees, 100 million, 180 million of us have been living with this all summer long. And our grid has been threatened. So we've been asked to keep our air conditioners, if we have that, at 73, 77 degrees. Don't keep it so cool, because if everybody is needing to use the grid to that extent, it's going to break. So what do we do for our seniors in this time as we're watching climate change? But also, many of our seniors don't have the monies that they need to make it from payday to Monday. Their pensions don't stretch far at all. What about Medicare and Medicaid? But what about their health issues? What are the special issues that face our seniors? And you look up, and before you know it, you're getting an AARP card. Before you know it. So don't think, if you keep on living, it will be you. Of course, the former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health, he is with us, a brilliant scholar, and there is no greater advocate for the public and our health than Dr. Damon Arnold. I'm so glad that he's with us today. Congressman Jonathan Jackson will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, maybe we have legal recourse. What happens if your building cannot or will not provide you the adequate resources to remain comfortable? And on and on and on. But before we pivot to you, before we pivot to you, Dr. Arnold, I know Reverend Dr. Uri is going to have to leave us because, of course, he is also a practicing attorney, everybody, in addition to being the senior pastor of one of the foremost churches in the country. And I wanted to know, what can the church do? I mean, are you seeing particular issues facing seniors right now, Reverend Dr. Uri? Ooh, is Reverend Dr. Uri there?
He is. He might be on mute.
Okay. Are you on mute, Dr. Uri? Well, you know what? Let me pivot to you. How would Dr. Arnold, how would our seniors be particularly vulnerable with this weather being so extreme, and just many of them just don't have the resources. I mean, if you're not wealthy, you got it's tight. Dr. Arnold.
Reverend Dr. Yuri, just now. I'm not sure if it's probably a channel issue with the.
Oh, you can hear him, but we cannot. Okay.
You can. Okay. But one thing that I would say is, when you start looking at the issues that seniors face, one thing is that children and seniors are particularly susceptible to the effects of heat because of the problems with body temperature regulation and water regulation. So hydration is really important in seniors and in children to have the proper hydration and heat. Also, the cooling time to make sure that you're not exposed to excessive heat throughout the day. So taking time where you are not directly in heat. One of the things that you were mentioning before that happened in Chicago was the great heat wave where we had so many seniors who lost their lives due to heat. And a lot of that had to do with exactly what you were saying, not having access to actual, adequate air conditioning, but also seniors were using plastic on their windows, and also, making sure that their windows were secure for security reasons, and that did not allow for air to go through their living quarters. And as a result, they just built up heat. So it's actually like living in a sauna. And those people who had difficulties with, food access, we get a significant amount of water from just eating our food. And if you also have problems with poor access to water or, not quality water, you start putting things in your body that you really don't want in your body. But these people are now more susceptible. Many of them are also taking different medications. If you are taking a blood pressure medication that has a diuretic, which means that it makes you go to the bathroom to lose water so that you can, urinate that water off. It decreases your blood pressure in that way. So multiple factors sort of come together to cause people who are seniors to be at more risk in hot weather and inclement weather. So the southern portion of the state, we also have a lot of wildfires going on right now, which puts smoke in the air, puts another additional stress on the body. We know we've been going through this air quality issue for several months now. But if you look at the normal quality, air quality is not as great as it should be, especially on areas like the south side, west side of Chicago, and in poorer communities where you have higher industrial activity. So that adds on top of the stresses that you're putting on your body with the additional heat, more of an issue for you to overcome. So our senior citizens, do have access to some reliable resources, and I'm so glad that Congressman Jackson is focusing on this. He's always been a compassionate person since I've known him for years. And really focused on, these things that seniors really need. So this is not a surprise to me that he is really highlighting this and making sure that, on August 4th at the Clark Center from 10 to 2 p.m., he's going to make sure that people actually have access to these resources and know about them. So it says, but I'm not going to do all these biblical quotes because you have a lot of reverends on the line.
And you know what? Just hold on one second, because in fact, no, but please, but look, this is why we go to Sunday school, Dr. Arnold. You're supposed to absorb something, and we do have Reverend Dr. Yuri back. But what were you about to say, Dr. Arnold?
I was just about to say that, for the lack of knowledge, people will perish, and so by supplying this knowledge, about things, the issues that many seniors face are things like transportation issues and Social Security issues, and then making sure that property taxes are instead so they don't lose their property at a home, utility assistance. Making sure that they have adequate food, SNAP, and there's a senior health insurance programs also that are, involved in Illinois, and prescription drug assistance. So the Biden administration actually started lowering the cost of prescription drugs, which was really actually a very good help for the people who are in the country, who are seniors. And also health care coverage. That was the Affordable Care Act. So many things have been done recently to start moving in a direction that will help seniors, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. And the population is getting older. We are a little bit top-heavy with senior citizens in the country. It's almost like an inverted pyramid, but we have a smaller young base and a larger upper base for the senior population. In many of the developing nations, it's the opposite. We have a lot of young people, but fewer seniors. So we do have something that was a little bit different when we start looking at things globally about what we have to sort of contend with. And then, and there's also like things, finding assistance for seniors. There are many different websites. You can go to things like the American Association of Retired Persons, AARP. It's a really good site. There's also a placeformom.com when you're talking about senior assisted living and trying to keep people in their homes as long as possible. And giving them the aid they need so that they don't become dependent on a nursing home. Some of these things can actually bankrupt families, where all the resources and money is going into that. And as people are living longer, that means that there's going to be a need for more assistance. The average lifespan has been increasing over the last couple of decades. But for the first time for the young people, the actual lifespan has been decreasing. But seniors are still living into the 70s, 80s, and 90s right now. So there needs to be some, and we've talked about this before about, when we start looking at our senior leadership in the country, it's been brought up more and more lately, but, people are older and they're still functional. Into later in life than they used to be, and have been able to have some of the issues that they're facing addressed. But there are also things, the Illinois Department of Human Services, the Illinois Department of Public Health, the Illinois Department of Aging. These are some really incredible websites that are online, where you can find more information about some of the needs you need. Healthcare and Family Services deals basically with Medicare and Medicaid. So some people are actually dual eligible, where they can actually get Medicare and Medicaid as well, for assistance. So just making sure people are looking at, the different events that are on calendars too, for them to educate themselves in these areas. Some of them can be challenging to know about, but if you go to and go online, you can actually find how easy some of these are. And there are ombudsmen that will actually help you through the process as well. There's an Illinois Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, and that's mandated by the Federal Older Americans Act and the Illinois Act on Aging. So there's a lot that can be done to actually give you assistance if you need that.
Well, hold on. I mean, Reverend Dr. Uri, are we able to hear you now? Because of course, the good doctor could hear you.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Where do churches come in with all of this? I mean, because in the past, I would say many different governments, more Republican than Democrat, have tried to move things, have tried to move the the help from the government to the church and to private organizations. I mean, how do you reach seniors? Because all of them don't have access to the internet, right? And And I mean, and then just some people are just you just have to go talk to them. I mean, our elders, function the way they function.
Yeah, the point is we have to do personal follow up. Sometimes that's a phone call, sometimes that's a visit, sometimes it's both. Sometimes the church has to be used as a cooling center. If you have seniors who may have built homes at the time when there wasn't this thing called central air, if the window units are not functioning, you have all of those things. Sometimes the homes need certain levels of repair to be able to kind of navigate the extremes. And so churches come in at a lot of different connection points in this continuum, but probably the one that's most critical is the voice of the pastor advocating on behalf of the senior population. They very often have relationships with local government leaders, members of the council, the mayor, to be able to make sure that the public resources at the local level don't just skip over the seniors to go to their usual places, but also to make sure that if you have, let's say, water issues, many times it's the municipality that provides the water. If your water bill goes up, and then there is a risk of foreclosure for failure to pay a government expense, now you've got a different issue. So pastors can advocate that there be a moratorium on any adverse actions, liens, or other government action due to the extreme, because the costs are going to go up. But because these seniors are on fixed income, the revenue's not going to go up. It's going to stay where it is. And so the voice of the church as a collective, but the voice of the pastor as an advocate has to be very prominent and very present, particularly in these extremes, so that the seniors are not forgotten in the process of trying to literally weather these storms.
So the pastor really can be legally can be your advocate.
Can be your policy advocate,
Okay.
not your legal advocate.
Well, I mean,
right?
not the power of
distinction.
attorney.
Right.
Okay, please make the distinction.
Right. Well, the distinction is as pastor, I would call my council person and ask, what are the resources available? Because I've got a number of seniors in my congregation. The weather's high, the water's standing, the mold is up, the eyes are watering. What is it that the city has in place? And then if there is no actual record that there's a moratorium, an actual legislative fix, I can, as an issue advocate, suggest to my council person, to the mayor, that the local government, if it's the state government, take some what we would call affirmative action to make sure that the seniors are not harmed in the course of trying to navigate this, and even advocate that there be some public resources put to helping to help the seniors come through this period of difficulty. And I think that's why Congressman Jackson is doing what he's doing. He's spot on, but that's why you got to have the partnership between the community and the people who represent the community, so that the community can thrive even in difficult times.
CK, I've got about a minute and a half here. Does this ever need to get litigious? Do you ever need to have your lawyer be your because do they ever need a legal advocate?
Well, good morning, Santita. I think you always need a legal advocate, especially if you feel as though you are being compromised. So I think it can get litigious. I think when you have the church community that's intervening as an advocate for our seniors and others, I think that's very important. But at some point, if conditions get bad and if there are inhabitability issues, then it is important to have to reach out to a lawyer. And so you always have legal recourse in most situations. Whether you have a good chance of prevailing is a completely different question. But you always have legal recourse. Always.
Well, we're going to have Congressman Jackson on shortly to talk about this. And, it is very important, particularly now. I mean, and when you look at the monies, if the poor pay more, the most vulnerable pay more for everything. I mean, right now, I'm going to tell you, I know my eyes are burning. I am really very uncomfortable this morning, but I'm not alone. But I'm not a senior, not quite yet. And fortunately, when I look at my own parents, I thank God that there's some issues that they don't have, but they have 5 kids that are looking in on them, and a church community who are looking in on them too. And we have to start taking care of each other, everybody. We really, really do. Our seniors really need to know the resources that are at the ready for them. Congressman Jonathan Jackson, his first annual Senior Resource Fair is on Friday from 10 to 2 p.m. at the Kroc Center at 1250 West 119th and Elizabeth. He's going to come up and join Attorney C.K. Hoffler and Dr. Damon Arnold to tell us why he feels it's important to have this resource fair now. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let us know if you're having any challenges or if your parents are having any challenges. If we can help you today, we certainly will. And you can always call Congressman Jackson's district office at 773-779-2400, 773-779-2400, and get some assistance. That's what we're here for. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Oh, don't be fooled. Dr. Arnold, I will be calling you after this show. I'm telling you, my eyes right now. Oh.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I'm sorry to hear that.
what's going Oh, no. I am like really miserable right now. Like, I'm miserable. I mean, even when I close my eyes, they hurt.
Yeah.
Santita, is there smoke in the air? And is there smoke?
You know what?
Because a lot of the environmental...
Girl, this has been, we've had the worst air quality in the top 20 cities with the worst air quality in the world. And, for several days, we had the worst air quality in the world, right? I mean, and I feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I'm miserable this morning. I'm miserable. I mean, it might sound like a joke. I could put on my lashes, but my eyes were actually swollen and they were wet.
Wow.
So trying to, literally, I sat up under the fan. I literally washed my eyes out with tap water.
Sending Congressman Jackson through.
And then stood in the fan to try and dry my eyes out. Congressman Jackson?
Hello, Santita. How are you, my dear?
I love you very much this morning.
Love you the most.
We've got Attorney C.K. Hoffler, but we also have Dr. Damon Arnold with us. Dr. Arnold.
Hey, Colonel Dr. Arnold. Hey, my friend.
That's right.
How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, man. Things are great on one side and going forward and going backwards the other way. So it's a blessing.
Well, thank you so much. We want to get the word out about this first annual Senior Resource Fair because it is so needed. And thank you so much for doing this. And of course, Dr. Arnold said, you're such a compassionate guy. He's not surprised that you're doing this, and we thank you for that.
They had the right person in that congressional seat right now. That's all I can say. And God help all the other Congress people because we got the best.
Absolutely. And it is August 4th. I've been telling everyone it's August 4th, which is on Friday from 10 to 2 a.m. It's on 119th and Elizabeth. The formal address, of course, is 1250 West 119th Street. And you need to be there so that you can take advantage of the free health screenings. And I'm going to ask you why that is important when we get back on the air, Dr. Arnold. And, the legal recourse that people might need Attorney C.K. Hoffler, because sometimes people have to contend with landlords, companies, or just if you're, say, renting in a condominium or a co-op or just renting in a building. At this time, the most vulnerable, anything can happen to them. And so that is
no, absolutely.
Yeah, and that is it. But Congressman, I'm glad that you're with us today.
And
60 seconds, everyone.
Oh, okay, stand by. We're coming in. What?
And Tina, I'm in Minneapolis, St. Paul today. So, the National Bar Association conference is going on. In fact, Daryl is doing a presentation. So I'm stepping out because I wanted to, cover your show. And Daryl Jones and Barbara Arnwine are doing a presentation for the Civil Rights Division on, giving updates on voting rights and other issues. But yes, It's beautiful here. Absolutely beautiful.
Well, that is we're on up there on AM 950 radio, and I met a few
10
people
seconds.
who
I
listened to the
know.
show up there yesterday, which was gratifying. They said, "I thought you lived in Minneapolis." I was like, "No, I live in Chicago."
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Please do meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And, of course, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station at AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, the first annual Senior Resource Fair, sponsored by Congressman Jonathan Jackson, will be on Friday, August 4th. 2023 from 10 to 2 p.m. You don't want to miss it, everybody. It's going to be at the Kroc Center at 1250 West 119th Street here in Chicago. But in fact, it's 119th and Elizabeth. 119th and Elizabeth. Free health screenings. You can get your questions answered about Medicare and Medicaid, nutrition, wellness with certified experts. You can find out about the government programs, the government agencies, and many of the community programs that are available to you. So it's a really tremendous fair. Welcome back to the show, Congressman Jackson. Of course, you're joining Dr. Damon Arnold, one of our distinguished veterans, brilliant public health expert, the former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health, the former president of the National Bar Association and the chair of Rainbow Push, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. Congressman Jackson, it's always a joy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Santita, my lovely sister. So I put it out there. Thank you for having me on.
I love my brother. Let me put that out there.
I attorney and my own Colonel, Dr. Damon Arnold. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you.
We do love him, and of course, our personal legal eagle, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. Why a senior resource fair? Why did you feel it important? Let me just start there. Why is it important for you to have that right now, Congressman?
Well, I think that's part of the job as defined by the Congress. I have to bring resources back into the district. And there are so many things that are currently available that many people in our community simply don't know. There's an art competition for seniors in high school, where they get to have their artwork displayed underneath the hallway to the Capitol from the office buildings. There's an app competition. So for those in high school that want to compete to get forward with their apps for computers and phones and software. And then there are things for like the seniors. We help the constituents with their IRS problems, their veterans problems. We can deal with their federal housing issues, passports, and all these things. And so I want to make the office accessible and provide the services that the seniors have paid into through their Social Security, through their taxes, that they deserve. So getting the information back out is huge, and we're going to have an ongoing building effort to keep pushing that information out. We can help schools accommodate them with tours of the Capitol and also tours of the White House. So I'm in there almost 3-4 days out of the week for the last 7 months, and I see all these other groups coming from all these other communities. Where's mine? Well, we've got to build that pipeline. Many of those other communities have had people in there that have constantly pushed it, and it's growing. So we've got now a group of people coming to the Capitol, our students, and want our seniors to know it's available for them as well, and just keep promoting it. That's the goal.
Well, you do have to keep promoting it. I mean, do you see why I'm going to ask you and Dr. Arnold why free health screenings are important. Why did you think that was important to you?
Well, Santita, that is like one of the most painful things. I was teaching at Kennedy King College, and a student came in and told me my mother has cancer, and she's in stage 4. Like, what? And that's a simple issue of screening, having access to all the resources of health, and from dental checkups to where many of the diseases start coming in through the mouth, because you got bone and saliva and other things that makes disease come through the mouth. We've got to have better dental screening, the health and blood pressure, and oftentimes because there's a shortage of doctors. And thanks to this affirmative action ruling, there's going to be a greater shortage of African American doctors, which is a bigger issue that we're going to have to fight for. But there's also diseases that can be seen through the eyes, disease that can be seen through the mouth, disease that can be seen through the feet. And Dr. Damon Arnold and other physicians and care providers will be there to share with the community. These are screenings that you can have that can save you a lot of enormous amount of pain and injury and make your life better. So that's what we're excited about, being on the preventive end to make people's lives better is ultimately what our goal is.
And Medicare and Medicaid, do you see, is there a lot of, well, first of all, what is Medicare? What is Medicaid? Can you have both at the same time?
No, the CAID, if you will, is for the state and for the more indigent population, and the CARE is a supplement really for the people that have an existing insurance.
So you need to have an existing insurance. Just you need to be insured. You need to not be indigent if you have Medicare. So what does Medicare do? Does it supplement? And because I see on these commercials, people say, well, if your Medicare doesn't cover everything, you need an additional policy. How does that work?
That's the plan B. That's for the medical. I'd like Dr. Arnold to pick up. Okay. I've learned so much about it. And unfortunately, I don't qualify for it right now. Us members of the Congress, we have two forms of insurance. One, we get covered by the office of the physician, attending physician, and then we have to buy into the Affordable Care Act. So I have Affordable Care Act insurance. I don't qualify for the Medicare at this time. So this luxury insurance that people were imagining that all members of the Congress have, no. Many people there that came out of state legislatures and other places still have those policies that they qualified as retired state officials when they went on to become members of the Congress. And others have, through their family, if their spouses are working, their insurance, and others have the Affordable Care Act. So I've signed up for the Affordable Care Act, also affectionately known as Obamacare, is my form of insurance.
Dr. Arnold, are you surprised?
Yeah, that's
because we think that congresspersons have this luxury insurance and that they can just get sick and everything is covered.
Yeah, that's when I first got to my job, when it's over the years, it's like the first thing you look at is your benefits package, and it always says better in the advertisements than it is when you actually look at the package. So you have to look at that. But that is a little surprising the way it's portrayed in the media. And this is something that is something that's affecting all of us, right? I start looking at the things that are going on. There are some exceptions to the rule, for Medicare, Medicaid, like if you have disabilities as a child or renal transplant patients, those people can actually become dual eligible. But it's uncommon because most people are not in that category. But you can have a little bit of both, if depending on what your financial situation is. I started looking at some of the things about back pain. So, back pain sounds like, that's a big issue, right? But back pain actually is something that's affecting a large percentage of the population. It is the most expensive healthcare issue from a public health perspective and from a medical intervention perspective as well. In occupational environmental medicine, that's one of my backgrounds, is that it's probably the leading cause of disability and pain and suffering in people in the country. And one of the problems that this causes is things like absenteeism at work and impaired productivity, workers' comp benefits are involved in it, disability benefits, loss of earnings. You have litigation around it in early retirement. You also have to replace those people who are being lost from the workforce. And Congressman Jackson actually hit the nail on the head when he started talking about the need to have more African-American healthcare providers. One of the things that we're facing right now, they did a national poll, and within the next 1 to 2 years, they're expecting 20% of physicians to retire.
Wow.
That's what polling is saying. And 40% of nurses in the next 2 to 3 years. But very little being talked about right now about this. But this is also leaving a deficit in the healthcare industry that is going to affect people who are seniors down the road. The reason why I brought up back pain in particular is because it can be addressed if it's addressed adequately and in the correct fashion. Much of the new research that's out tells you how to treat low back pain correctly, but a lot of providers have not been educated on it or savvy to it or have not gotten the proper instruction on it. So there are some modifiable things like, decreasing your weight, smoking, cessation, lowering your perceived general health status of a person can be affecting the low back, and physical activity, right? Job dissatisfaction, all those things sort of play in that you can change. Well, one thing you can't change is your age, right? And poverty, this whole thing too. So the reason why I think that's so important is that senior citizens then become immobilized. So when we start talking about access to services and care, it's harder for people to get around if they have things like low back pain, if they have things like diabetes, where they're constantly having to struggle to make sure that they're eating right and having the correct medications they need. Those struggles actually can get in the way of them getting overall general care. That's why I think what Congressman Jackson is doing is so extremely important. It's just to open their eyes to what are the possibilities, because many of them don't know. They're sitting there trying to figure out, how do I get through this? We also have seniors who are living longer and taking care of their grandchildren as well. So they are not just sitting around sometimes. They are actually active, trying to hold the family together, and are very important contributors to the family life cycle. So it's important to make sure that they have optimal health. And I think what Congressman Jackson is doing is a step in a great step in the right direction.
Congressman Jackson and of course Attorney Hoffman can jump in here too. You have, because these seniors are vulnerable, maybe they're not getting enough air. Maybe they're not getting enough heat in the wintertime. But particularly now, since we're living with this heat wave and this extreme weather, does your office help seniors when they're having to deal with conflicts, say with a landlord or with public housing?
Not directly.
Okay.
Not directly, but the purpose of the fair is other elected officials have been invited in so they can find all of the resources. So there'll be aldermen that can help with some of the city issues. There'll be county commissioners. There'll be state reps. So it's a complex form of government that we have. There's not a one-stop shop. I'm trying my best to bring these agencies, bring these other elected officials. So just think of this as the platform. Mm-hmm. This isn't my fair. This is our community fair at the Kroc Center. And so other professionals, if you can help people with counseling services, mental health, if children are going back to school and you are a student counselor teacher and you want to offer books and other things, this is a platform that we can scale this up. And Santita, to Dr. Arnold's point, we're in a trauma desert, if you will. Ironically enough, we're in the most fertile land in the world, and we are traumatized by the lack of access. Your greater predictor of upward mobility has to deal not necessarily with what you eat, but what level you have access to transportation. Our seniors are trapped in their homes, so we need to reach out to them. We also have a lack of medical providers and the lack of accessibility. We're having a lack of groceries. Groceries is actually something that keeps me up quite a bit. And I'm on the agriculture committee to find out how do we get groceries coming back into our neighborhood. The idea of having access to fresh produce, which is, food is health and all the other good things. It's been taken away from us. We've had it before. You go past the same buildings that are now closed. That's a huge issue for me on how to bring groceries back into our neighborhoods.
Are there any immediate resources that our seniors have? Because many of them don't have enough money. And I have to say this because the congressman, in full disclosure, you all know, is my brother, and Attorney Hoffler and Dr. Arnold. One of my sources of pride is when people have come up to me, and when one or two people have called into the show, and a senior might come up short. They're standing in line at a store, and someone behind them will pay their bill. And it's oftentimes people say, it was your brother. I mean, it can make me cry because Jonathan, the congressman, my brother Jonathan is just that compassionate. Attorney Hoffler. I mean, he's just that kind of guy. And people are struggling out here.
Well, I have a government salary. I can't do that now.
No, you cannot.
But the thing is, Congressman, you did it. You've done it for decades when nobody was looking. You just did it because it was the right thing to do.
But wait a minute, girl. Hold on.
Passionate, have a huge heart.
He just said he works for the government now, not the government, as our brother Jesse said, the government.
I know. I heard what he said. I heard what he said. But what's important is his heart, and that he did it for decades because he is just that phenomenal, and he is. That's what he's always been, and that's why he's the great congressman. I want to say the greatest, but I believe the greatest. But Santita, in terms of you talk about legal recourse, it's very difficult for our senior or elders community. They don't even have access to transportation. They have access to legal counsel, but there are legal programs in communities that are designed to help, especially when you have uninhabitable conditions. And a lot of times people access that through government agencies, through HUD, maybe through local agencies in the community. And there are legal teams, and a lot of law firms do this work on a pro bono basis. The question is access. How do you gain access to that? So everybody has legal recourse, but if you don't have access to it, it's like you don't have legal recourse. So you can, through bar associations, that's why we have the National Bar. We're at a conference right now in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have bar associations that do provide lines for and access to free legal advice. People don't believe that exists anymore. You have legal aid. You have a lot of services that are there to try to help people who are affected, especially seniors and people who are in disadvantaged positions, children. I think our most vulnerable communities are children and the elderly. But this is really tough when you have global warming, you have climate change, you have all of us suffering from these environmental issues, whether they're water, whether it's heat, and you have so little access because you're, as Congressman Jackson said, you might be trapped at home. You have no transportation. You don't have grocery stores in your community. You can't get basic goods without traveling. If you don't have transportation, you clearly can't get there. So you have to rely on family, and I think this is the time when family and the church have to go above and beyond.
Well, Congressman, of course, Dr. Arnold, our favorite veteran, used to be the head of the Illinois Department of Public Health. You said that this resource fair is a platform because we don't know a lot of programs, Congressman, that are accessible to us. I'd like for you and Dr. Arnold to converse about that over the next 4 minutes before we go. Congressman?
Well, Santita, one of the programs in the Farm Bill, I'm on the Agricultural Committee, is Food is Medicine. There's going to be a program to write prescriptions from your doctor to help you buy groceries. So you don't necessarily need Coumadin. You can have more onions and beets to help you with your blood. So this is an example of so many other programs.
Well, and Dr. Arnold, you're a real proponent of altering our diets because you've made some changes. yourself. You're like, wait a minute, you can really increase your healthfulness by changing your diet. Is it ever too late? Would you ever talk to seniors about that, Dr. Arnold?
Oh, most definitely. It's never too late. That's the first thing. And much of what we've had in medicine has been, and the agricultural sciences, historically over the last century or so, have been incorrectly taught and incorrectly implemented. So a vegan diet is probably the best diet you can be on. It actually has been shown to reverse, clogging of arteries. There's some good documentaries. One of my good friends, Dr. Terry Mason, is in it. But Forks Over Knives is one, and then the other one is related to sporting events and that kind of thing, where they actually talk about this whole process and how our arteries get clogged by the foods that we're eating. So, and it's called Game Changers. But if you go and you actually start following these dietary practices, they can actually help to control the symptoms of diabetes, bring down blood pressure, also bring down your weight, which actually is mechanical forces like in the low back pain. There are multiple advantages to doing it, decreasing inflammation, which is really the basis for much of the disease that we're facing that's out there. So when we start looking at, food assistance programs out there, you have things like Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, and you have things, the Emergency Food Assistance Program. It's TEFAP. And then also Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, SFMNP. And then you have Commodity Supplement Food Programs. All these programs are great that are out there. But one of the limitations of some of the programs is that you have to be within a certain range of the poverty level, 120% or 160%, depending on the program you're looking at. But many people are sort of in the category where they don't really qualify for that and still are suffering. So we really need to think about a global kind of approach, and people who are in those poverty levels are actually even more deeply impacted because of some of the cost of things that we have. Everything seems to be going up traditionally for the last 50 years, right? I mean, I remember a slice of pizza used to be 25 cents when I was when I was back in high school.
That's no longer the case.
That's not longer the case.
You know what?
I used to always hear people saying that.
Oh, it's terrible. The last minute and a half, Congressman Jackson, I want you to have it. It's Friday, August 4th, 2023, the Senior Resource Fair. You're going to have all kinds of government officials there. You're going to have all kinds of community workers there. You're going to get a free health screening. You're going to get questions answered about Medicare and Medicaid, nutrition and wellness. Got to work on these food deserts and so much. Congressman, the last minute, now that I've talked about this, at 1250 West 119th Street, 119th in Elizabeth, you got to be there, Congressman.
Right. It's at the Kroc Center right out there in our community. And I want to thank all the other elected officials that are coming out. This is a platform that they too will have a table and showing you the resources for your local disposal, for back to schools. A lot of people are doing a lot of great things. So I'm piggybacking, participating in what they're doing, using the leverage of this platform to bring more people in. And if you have resources that you want to contribute to share from your expertise, counseling or otherwise, please come out and let's make this a better community. And it starts with the collective, us. It's not an individual, it's the us, it's the we, it's the ours. So let's grow from there. And I want to thank the Kroc Center. They've been amazing to work with, and the McDonald's Corporation, their foundation, for having built that in the name of the former founder, if you will, of McDonald's, Mr. Ray Kroc. So We're excited about it. It's a first-class facility, and we want our community to have the resources that they deserve. They deserve them, and a lot of people don't have to suffer as much as they do. They have to come out and get the information for their healing.
And of course, your district office number is 773-779-2400, 773-779-2400. The first annual senior resource fair, sponsored by Congressman Jonathan Jackson, but he's doing it in conjunction with elected officials. And of course, Dr. Damon Arnold. That's right, because he wanted to jump in today because he said, we've got to get this information out to people. It's at the Kroc Center, 1250 West 119th. It's 119th and Elizabeth. It's from 10 to 2. 10 to 2. You'll be hearing me talk about it all week because I want you to get out there, everybody. I love everybody. God bless you. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Don't get a little bit more from the Congressman and Dr. Arnold. Love you, everybody. God bless.
I will be there at the Kroc Center.
Amen.
Bye-bye. Love you.
I love you.
dear.
Wait a minute, Jonathan, Congressman.
Yes, dear.
Well, Kathy wanted to know. Hold on, I just wanted to get this to her. Kathy, he said, how soon can you apply for Medicare? Do you know the age?
That's a good question.
Oh, Dr. Arnold, do you
Dr.
know?
Arnold?
Yeah, it's usually the age is 62 is when you can retire. Because, but then again, when you're applying for it, you have to think about your retirement time. 67 is what they say is the normal retirement time. Now they've moved it to 70, which I think is problematic for African Americans in particular, because our lifespan is shorter, so we end up losing money. But you can do it a little bit earlier. But 65 is when most people will go and consider doing it. So that is your time period. So, but when you retire and you that you're no longer employed, so you're doing your Social Security. So when you apply for your Social Security, you usually go and get the Medicare.
Congressman, I'm going to let you go. Is there anything else you'd like to say before you go, Congressman Jackson?
I was talking with a gentleman the other day, and he was talking about Social Security, and he grew up in Mississippi. He got his first sack to go pick cotton when he was like 6 or 7 years old, and he asked me if he could apply for Social Security as a teenager. He worked so hard in Mississippi that he should get Social Security as a teenager. I said, no, brother, it doesn't work like that. So, thank you, Dr. Arnold.
Yeah,
he said they worked him so hard.
Truth to that.
People only come to Jonathan with these things. I'm like, are you serious right now?
But we need to look into it.
Hey, hardship is a real deal. It's a real thing.
Oh, yeah. And, one of the things that, it ties into Congressman Jackson that has always been a kind of an issue for me. And when I was doing things with the Illinois Department of Public Health, I used to think about it a lot, is that when they increase the age for retirement for Social Security, African-American males have the shortest life expectancy of, African-American men, women, and white men, white women, right? And white women have the longest. So when they increased the age, one of the things that I thought happened was that if we have not significantly changed the average age of death of African-American males, which actually falls just after retirement, so you don't pick up your pension, you don't pick up your Social Security benefits you've been paying into for your entire life. So where does that money go? It's gone. And we have to address that shortfall. So it actually contributes to intergenerational poverty by having increased retirement age for Social Security for people of color. And that's something that has not really been addressed that well, in the legal system.
That's a great point, Dr. Arnold.
Dr. Arnold wants to join you on Friday, Congressman. So I will make sure that you all are connected.
I'm excited, and I'm so appreciative once again to the Kroc Center and to all the elected officials and the activists. So let's find the resources And Santita, like Dr. Arnold said, there are quite a few resources. Another reason I'm on the Agriculture Committee is it's going to be the second biggest bill behind the defense spending. 75% of the Department of Agriculture's spending is on SNAP, on the supplemental nutritional assistance, to make sure they're not cutting back on the programs that feed those persons that cannot feed themselves. It's just supplemental nutrition. Our people are overfed and malnourished. So this is a step in turning that around. And then that covers the WICs and all the other programs. So we want to be a defender to expand those programs.
Well, no, I thank you for that. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of questions. TJ, I see your question because he is looking at disability for people who are 47. He said, but that's for depression only. He said, but other people have other issues, neuropathy, arthritis, cancer, and they keep getting turned down for disability. Is there anything that can be done about that? Yeah, I hear you, Dr. Arnold.
Oh, yeah. You know, one of the things, first I have to say one thing that's been on my mind since we started talking, but Congressman Jackson, this is not new to Congressman Jackson. He has been involved in this fight for decades, right? Mm-hmm. So he has already accomplished many things for the community, even walking into the office. And that's one of the reasons why he was overwhelmingly elected to the position he's in. So that wisdom and that insight and the connectedness to the community has been one of his paramount hallmarks, or he's been iconic in that arena. So don't be mistaken or don't get it twisted. This is someone new coming into the office. That's one thing.
Well, we say, but we also say that about you. I mean, Congressman, we know that Dr. Arnold is so distinguished. He could be an extremely wealthy man. I mean, he could have gone in another direction, but that is not what you've done. I mean, you say you're in retirement now, but you're still looking for ways to bring our doctors together in the diaspora and the Black diaspora so that you can get them to the most vulnerable communities. You're looking for ways to get information out to us about the way that we can eat. You're looking at trying to end food deserts and get real good food, real healthful foods into our communities. And so we're grateful to you as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And Santita, you hit another issue that was really interesting that, when we were talking about, people who have cancer and those kinds of things. I know several families where they're dealing with kids with autism, and there are seniors who are dealing with kids who have autism. And we also have different things that are occurring in different families as far as mental health issues around Alzheimer's disease. And so there are multiple things. And if you are already in a situation where it has been difficult to survive in this society because of your skin, of your color of your skin, or because of your poverty level, then something needs to be done because it's becoming overwhelming. And when people get to the point of being overwhelmed, we have seen, increase in things like suicidality, people, using drugs and alcohol to try to solve their problems. We have got to do something. It's unconscionable not to be involved and to try to change the course of that kind of destiny for people in our community. So I just want to applaud Congressman Jackson for making an affirmative step towards making sure that does not continue.
Congressman, would you like to say anything before we go?
That's it. And look for the people coming out. And thank you, Dr. Colonel Damon Arnold. One of the brightest persons I know, and certainly the most compassionate. So thank you so much for all you're giving, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, Santita, for bringing us together.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad that he's going to be joining you on Friday. And I will too, everybody. I'm going to go out there and get some resources. I can't get the seniors yet, but I'm by the time I get there, should the good Lord give me more time, I'm going to be ready.
You're the best.
I love you, sweetie.
Love you, baby.
Love you, love you, love you, love you,
Bye.
my dear brother. And I love you, Dr. Arnold. And you know, we're gonna hang up because I'm gonna call you about my allergies right now. I've got it. Look, he's one of the one of the top doctors in America, okay, and in the world. I'm sorry, y'all. And you know, he's got to give me some advice because my eyes are about to. I mean, I want to. Y'all watch me right now. I want to take them out right now, and I want to run them under some cold water. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm miserable, everybody.
Yeah.
I love you, but I don't want my lashes to fall off because it'll mess
Sorry.
up my look. Look,
Yeah.
I'm pitiful. It'll mess up my look. It will. But I'm going to hang up because I'm going to call you right now so you can get on with your day. I love you all, everybody. Remember the Senior Resource Fair, the first annual Senior Resource Fair. Dr. Arnold will be there, thankfully. So, you know, and he was the head of the Illinois Department of Public Health. So even if you come in from Indiana, you know, my brother is not someone who would push you away if you're not in his district. So this really is a call to everyone to get to this resource fair so you can know what is available to you. No matter where you're from, you're going to be able to get a free health screening and not just checking out your heart. People are going to look in your mouth. They're going to look in your eyes. They're going to look in your ears because there are health indicators all over the body. You're going to get a thorough health screening. You're going to get answers to your questions about Medicare and Medicaid. You're going to find out about nutrition and wellness with certified experts. And I would say, you know, even Dr. Arnold can tell you something about that too, about the foods to eat. You don't have to necessarily go on medications. You need to connect with various community service agencies, government agencies. You're going to have other elected officials there who will be able to help you. And we're going to have some everybody there. So you don't want to miss it. It's at 1250 West 119th. That's 119th and Elizabeth at the Kroc Center here in Chicago, Friday, August 4th from 10 to 2 p.m. All right. I love you all. And you'll be hearing me talk about it all week because I want you all to get out there because we need the support. And that's what this is for. Sending you so much love, Dr. Damon Arnold, and saluting you as always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Sending you so much love.
Fantastic show.
Look, I'm calling you.
I'm so
I'm
glad
calling
that
you right
Congressman
now.
Jackson.
Oh, I'm so glad you're going to be there. I mean, no, this is great because you know you did help. You did run one of the biggest and top, best performing healthcare systems in the country, and so you know, and the thing is, we need to know. We need to know we need to know what we are due. We need to know what we're due, and so I just thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thank you for giving of your time on Friday because, I mean, certainly we need to have you there. So I'm really glad about that. Oh,
Okay.
Jewel, thank you. I will feel better as soon as I find out how I can feel better because right now I'm miserable. I'm here with you today. So there you go. I'm not that miserable because you all make me feel good and I hope you know that. I love you and thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your lives for a couple of hours every day. I love you, everybody. God bless you. God bless you, Dr. Arnold. I'll talk with you in like 1 minute. I love you, everybody. Have a great one. Thank you, Devin, for a great show.